Sawadika. I am so happy to be here, and I only have one regret, which is that I don't speak Thai. So next time I come back and I'll speak in Thai. But today, I hope that you'll bear with me as I work through this in English. My name is Andy Rigsby. I work with Alive and Thrive. I have now for more than 7 years, and I've had the incredible good fortune of being able to do work like this with medical associations and professionals in countries including Bangladesh, Vietnam, Ethiopia, Nigeria, several states in India. And my background is in advocacy and communications. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about how we take all of these very technical issues and we begin to translate them for different and specific audiences, including sometimes health professionals, and also including policymakers, including opinion leaders and the media, because we know that unless we are all singing a united song with a clear message, it will be hard to have change. And so that's, I think, one of the most important points of the week I have spent here in Bangkok with the Thai Breastfeeding Center Foundation, almost every day of the week with different audiences talking about the importance of these issues. So thank you for taking the time. For this session, for the next 15 minutes or so, want to talk about one of the stickier issues in the BMS Code, which is conflict of interest. This is an issue that is dealt with all over the world. It's not unique or special in Thailand. It is common everywhere, and everybody is struggling with it, thinking about it, wondering how do we approach it. So we're going to get into the technical details in a moment. But before we do, I want to start with a little mental exercise. I want you to imagine 2 scenarios with me. And if you want, you can close your eyes and think through these scenarios. I want you to imagine a woman, and she has just started her career. She's completed her education. She's in the workforce for the first time, working very hard and long hours. And every day after she finishes her work, she stops by at the grocery store on her way home, and she buys food for dinner for she and her family that night, and she sees a giant promotion of breast milk substitutes, and it's shaped like a mountain, and all of the boxes are shaped like a mountain, and there's a cutout of a baby at the top of the mountain, looking strong, like a mountaineer, one that has truly conquered strength and intelligence, and who has succeeded in life because the baby has scaled the mountain. And she goes through her first year or 2 of work, and then she and her husband decide that it's time to have a baby, and she gets pregnant. And she goes through her pregnancy, and she knows, she has heard that breast milk is the best for her baby. So she knows. But she goes through her pregnancy, and she works up until the very, very last day of her pregnancy because she knows that she has to save as much sick time for her maternity as possible because she doesn't have very much maternity leave. So she really saves up as much time as she can. And then she goes into labor, and she has a very hard and a very long labor, but the child arrives and is healthy and happy. And the doctor brings the baby to her, and within a few minutes, the nurse comes over and says, "Here, Nestle product. The best for your baby. And it's so much easier than breastfeeding." And the mom says, "No, I'm going to breastfeed. I want to try. That's my choice. I've heard it's the best." And so she breastfeeds in the hospital despite what she heard from the doctor. And she goes home, and she has 6 weeks of maternity leave. And her mother-in-law has come to stay with her and her family during this time. And she's having a really hard time because breastfeeding is hard. And her mother-in-law says, "Just use formula." And she says, "No, I'm going to use my breast milk." But the mother-in-law, she says, "But look, the baby's mouth is dirty, and you need to wash it out with a little bit of water." And she says, "No, I've heard that that's not right. But eventually, as the weeks go by, she approaches her return to work, and it's only 6 weeks into her new life with a baby. And she goes back to work, and she finds that she doesn't have the tools she needs at work. There's no space for her to breastfeed, to lactate, to pump her breast milk. And the tools aren't available, and so she actually ends up going into the bathroom and pumping in the bathroom. And on one occasion, she actually has forgotten her pump, and so she ends up in a very painful situation because she doesn't have the tools to do what she needs to do. And eventually, one night, she's going home from work, and it's just 8 weeks after her child was born, her second week back on the job, and she sees that child scaling the mountain, looking healthy and happy, and she thinks, my baby's going to be okay. I'm just going to switch to formula. And the reality is that breastfeeding is already hard and it already needs support, but we let it be harder because we don't create an enabling environment around mothers that says, you can do it. And that's our job. It's not just to make breastfeeding the right choice. It's to make it the easier choice. When Paul was talking earlier, he talked first to you as a doctor and as a health professional, but he said last and most importantly, I want to talk to you as a father. And we need to bring that kind of heart into our communications. Too often, when we talk about policies, we think, oh, it's so technical, it's so legal, it's so dry. And what does it really have to do with mothers and babies and breastfeeding? We need to see the policies with the same heart and the same soul that we think about skin-to-skin contact and how beautiful and personal that is. So as we go through today's discussion, not just the presentations, but the discussion and the Q&A, I encourage everybody to think about all of this material with heart and not just with minds, not just with legal considerations, but with human considerations. Okay, so I think that we have talked about the code a fair amount, and you got a really great, extensive view from here in Thailand. But why do we need the code? We know, and these aren't just statements, this is backed up by research, that aggressive and unethical marketing of breast milk substitutes undermines breastfeeding, that breastfeeding rates go down and or stagnate in countries that don't have strong regulatory environments, because mothers need impartial information, free of commercial influence, to make informed choice. We call that free choice. Some from the industry would say, you know, we have a right to spread our information, but we would say moms have the right to free information, free of bias and inaccuracy. Only then can you make free and informed choices. And of course, because we know that breast milk substitutes pose risks. The breast milk substitute industry is large and it is growing. If anybody ever tells you in the course of these discussions, but what about the industry? Will they be okay? They're gonna be okay. You can see that in 2014, global sales of baby milk formula was about 44.8 billion, and that's projected to grow to 70.6 billion in 2019. And they're very strategic. They are seeking out new and emerging markets where breast milk substitutes have a lower price point so that they can build clientele and continue to increase and inflate prices over time, because they know how to market their products better than any of us possibly could. The code. There are, broadly speaking, 4 pillars to the code. I'm wondering, raise your hand if you've read the code. Oh, well, there's one. You should read it. It's really good, and it'll help you get to sleep at night, too. But it actually is very informative, and it's not that long. I encourage you, take 10 minutes to read through the sections of the code. The 4 pillars, marketing and advertising, including sampling. This means, you can't do giveaways. You can't market to moms directly. You can't build big displays in grocery stores. You can't be on TV and marketing in the mass media. And most importantly, you must be telling truthful information about your products. We'll talk more about that in a second. Promotion in healthcare settings and with health workers. The breast milk substitute industry can't do anything to incentivize workers or the workplaces in healthcare settings to be promoting breast milk. Breast milk substitutes. That means no gifts, no giveaways, no incentives to health workers for giving breast milk substitutes. That means no displays in hospital and healthcare settings. When breast milk substitutes are in hospitals, they should be in the pharmacy where they belong, because they should be recommended only in the very rare instances that they are needed. So it's got a series of provisions about health workers and healthcare settings. And then product labeling. No images of happy, smart, strong babies on the labels. No language that implies that breast milk substitutes are better, equal to or better than breast milk. And very clear instructions for use with the recommendation that you only use the product with the counsel and advice of a healthcare professional. It's not a product that should just be used on one's own without medical advice and support. And then there's industry sponsorships and promotions of medical and professional associations. This is one of the latest additions to the code through the most recent resolution, WHA 69.9, that we'll talk about today. Companies mislead and manipulate parents, making claims like, our product will help your child not have the allergies that you have. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I think that you've seen a lot of evidence today. Falsely equating formula feeding with breastfeeding. On the left, we learned from the best, a breastfeeding mom, so we could give you and your baby the best. Here's formula. Implying, saying our formula has all the properties that your breast milk has, which is factually inaccurate. There are more than 200 active ingredients in breast milk, many of which simply cannot be replicated or synthesized chemically. Does the BMS code work? This is why the industry works so hard to prevent BMS code laws from being enacted, because they know and have documented in their own industry documentation that strong regulations are increasingly posing a barrier to their sales. It decreases in inappropriate marketing of strong marketing regulations are associated with decreases in inappropriate marketing. So we know first that they work in terms of controlling the actual marketing behavior. But second, it actually decreases the use of breast milk substitutes and contributes to increases in breastfeeding rates. So we know it works. And I think you saw this graph earlier, but just a quick comparison between China and India in 2002 and 2008. Sales in China grew from 1 billion to more than 3 billion, while sales in India remained very low. And that is largely attributed to a very strong regulatory environment in India. So to just sort of set the level for the conversation about conflict of interest, a definition. A conflict of interest is a set of conditions in which professional judgment concerning a primary interest, such as a patient's welfare or the validity of research, tends to be unduly influenced by a secondary interest, such as financial gain. So if you are receiving financial gain for your work, it may influence either the way that you deliver advice to a patient, or it might impact the validity of your research. We know for many different products over the world, across the world and across time, that industries, not just the breast milk substitute industry, they love to do their own research. Like, for example, tobacco companies. They did a lot of research in the early days, saying that they had evidence that the public health claims were inaccurate. You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. And in the marketing of products like these, that's very true. The conversation that we're having about breast milk substitutes, it's been had about cigarettes and tobacco companies that use doctors. You know, physicians say Luckies are less irritating to your throat. Or Coca-Cola, lunch refreshed, served up by a nurse. And so what we're talking about with the formula industry, it's not new or special. It's more of the same. And I'm not equating all of these products. I'm not saying that Coca-Cola and tobacco and breast milk substitutes are equal in their health impacts or concerns, but the marketing strategies are the same. And the same topics we talk about with formula, labeling of tobacco products has been a huge issue, right? And now in Thailand, in order to produce and sell tobacco, you have to have very strong warnings and violations and graphic images that illustrate the harm of the product. Not to say that industry can't sell, but to say that industry can't mislead and must provide accurate information. Today, the promotion is becoming more subtle. So you might see a stack of formula products, and it comes with a seal of approval recommended by the Russian Pediatric Association. So it might not be over the top. You might not see it in a magazine, but there's still a constant reinforcement. So I want to take a moment to break down conflict of interest in the simplest of terms. We have healthcare providers and their work, and we have the formula industry and their work. Healthcare professionals and policymakers' primary interest is to improve the health and nutrition outcomes. Can we all agree to that? That's an accepted fact. So, presumably, then, their goal is to increase breastfeeding, because as we saw through Paul's presentation today, that is one of the single best things that we can do, especially in the first months of life, to save lives, improve health, and improve employer productivity and wages to strengthen the entire national economic and social output. Formula companies, the baby food industry's goal is to increase profits for shareholders, right? I mean, any big, especially multinational company, they have a big board and shareholders and reports that they produce every year that show how their product is growing over time and how they are providing a return on the investment of their shareholders. In order to do that, they have to sell more breast milk substitutes. It naturally follows that's their goal. And in order to sell more breast milk substitutes, they have to reduce breastfeeding. So this is conflict of interest in one slide. The World Health Assembly urges nations to avoid conflict of interest, and this has been now going on for several decades. Originally in '96, Resolution 49.15 urges governments to ensure that the financial support for professionals working in infant and young child health does not create conflicts of interest. And again in 2005, to ensure that financial support and other incentives for programs and health professionals working in infant and young child health do not create conflicts of interest. Today, just as of this last year, we have World Health Assembly Resolution 69.9 specific to the BMS Code, and it did a few things. It extended marketing restrictions to 36 months of age as the recommended practice. We've discussed why. It covers both foods and beverages out of recognition that so many of the products now from 12 months to 36 months are actually contributing to the double burden of malnutrition. And so not only are kids not getting breast milk, but they are getting products that are unhealthy for them and their long-term outcomes, including obesity and heart disease and diabetes. Risks of cross-promotion. And finally, in bold, it calls for an end to industry sponsorships of health associations and their events because of conflict of interest. But the good news is that health professions and associations are starting to lead the way. This is the International Society for Social Pediatrics and Child Health, and just in 2014, they released this statement. It is our view that this sponsorship is damaging to the reputation of pediatricians, to the health of mothers and infants, and to the status of breastfeeding, and this statement explains the reasons why we believe that such sponsorship should be terminated. The Scottish Public Health Network released a statement about recommending that their membership and others not attend or participate in a conference because it was sponsored by the BMS industry. And the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health warned that the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health is being warned that it risks damaging its reputation if it does not reject income from manufacturers of infant formula. So you can see that this isn't just an issue here in Thailand or here in Southeast Asia, but it's actually happening all over the world, and professional associations are starting to lead the way. The UK, India, Lao PDR, and South Africa, health professional associations are not taking sponsorships from the baby food industry in those locations. So that is just sort of a 101 on conflict of interest that we wanted to share that we hope helps contribute to the dialogue today. Thank you.
เรามีอัตราการให้นมแม่ที่น้อยลงนะคะต้องมีการให้ข้อมูลของแม่เนี่ยให้รอบด้านนะคะว่าไม่ใช่เป็นการให้ข้อมูลเพียงด้านเดียวจากการโฆษณาต้องมีการตัดสินใจที่จะให้นมแม่หรือนมผงบนข้อมูลที่รอบด้านนะคะไม่มีไบแอสจากโฆษณาของนมผงเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยจึงต้องมีมิลค์โค้ดนี้ขึ้นมานะคะแล้วก็ต้องมีการตลาดของการนมผงเนี่ยจะมีการขยายตัวมากขึ้นในประเทศต่างๆนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเราก็ต้องมีมิลค์โค้ดเพื่อที่จะไปต่อต้านการขยายตัวของตลาดนี้นะคะแล้วก็พูดถึงเรื่องของ4 pillar เสาหลัก4 อันของโค้ดที่พูดถึงคืออันที่1คือการตลาดและการโฆษณาหมายถึงว่ามีการแจกนมผงฟรีให้กับแม่นะคะนี่คือต้องมีการห้ามการที่แจกนมผงฟรีให้กับแม่ไม่ว่าจะเป็นแม่แรกคลอดหรือว่าหญิงตั้งครรภ์ที่มีลูกเล็กนะคะพิล่าที่2คือการโปรโมทในสถานพยาบาลในโรงพยาบาลต่างๆจะมีการแจกนมผงให้กับเป็นของขวัญฟรีให้กับแม่ก็ไม่ได้หรือว่าของขวัญให้กับบุคลากรทางด้านการแพทย์ในสถานพยาบาลอันนี้ก็ห้ามในโค้ดนะคะอันที่2อันที่3คือเรื่องของฉลากนมผงเนี่ยเขาต้องมีการบังคับว่าฉลากนี้จะต้องไม่มีรูปเด็กหรือไม่มีข้อความที่แอบอ้างเทียบเคียงกับนมแม่ให้เห็นนะคะแล้วก็4การให้สปอนเซอร์ชิพโดยบริษัทนมผงเนี่ยก็ไม่ควรที่ต้องมีอีกต่อไปซึ่งเขาก็ได้พูดถึงว่าในการประชุมของสมัชชาสุขภาพโลกในครั้งที่19/9เนี่ยเขาก็มีการออกแล้วว่าต้องมีการหยุดยั้งการที่จะให้สปอนเซอร์ชิพกับบุคลากรทางด้านการแพทย์อีกต่อไปเนื่องจากว่ามี conflict of interest แล้วก็สไลด์ที่เขาบอกให้ชัดเจนมากเลยคือสไลด์ที่เห็น2 อันใช่ไหมคะว่าหน้าที่ของเราที่เป็นบุคลากรทางด้านการแพทย์เนี่ยคืออะไรคือการที่เราต้องทำให้สุขภาพเด็กของเราเนี่ยดีขึ้นมีสุขภาพดีขึ้น nutritional status ดีขึ้นซึ่งนั่นคืออะไรคือการเพิ่มอัตราการให้นมแม่ให้มากขึ้นใช่ไหมคะแต่อีกฝั่งหนึ่งคือเรื่องของบริษัทนมผงเนี่ยของเขาต้องทำเพื่อกำไรของบริษัทของเขาเพื่อทำให้แชร์โฮลเดอร์ของเขาได้กำไรมากขึ้นดังนั้นเนี่ยเขาต้องมีการขายนมผงมากขึ้นค่ะเพราะเมื่อมีการขายนมผงมากขึ้นนมแม่ก็ให้น้อยลงเพราะฉะนั้น2 อันนี้เนี่ยมันคอนฟลิกต์ด้วยกันอยู่แล้วถ้าเราเนี่ยไม่ถ้าเราไปรับสิ่งของหรืออะไรจากบริษัทนมผงเนี่ยเราก็จะมีคอนฟลิกต์ในตัวเราเองว่าจริงๆแล้วเราจะต้องสนับสนุนอะไรกันแน่เราต้องมั่นคงในอะไรนะในเอติกของวิชาชีพของเราว่าเราต้องสนับสนุนเรื่องการให้นมแม่จึงไม่ควรที่จะรับเรื่องของสปอนเซอร์ชิพจากบริษัทนมผงนะคะแล้วที่ชอบมากที่อันที่พูดตอนแรกเนี่ยนะคะที่บอกว่าในการที่เราเนี่ยจะสนับสนุนเรื่องการให้นมแม่เนี่ยเราต้องร้องเพลงด้วยทำนองเดียวกันเขาพูดถึงตอนแรกใช่ไหมคะถ้าเราร้องเพลงด้วยทำนองที่แตกต่างกันเนี่ยเราจะไม่สามารถที่จะได้ยินส่งเพลงนี้ให้คนทั้ง ทั้งหมดได้ยินนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นในการที่เรามาประชุมในครั้งนี้เนี่ยคิดว่าเป็นจุดแรกนะคะที่เราจะมาร้องเพลงด้วยทำนองเดียวกันเพื่อที่จะให้เพลงของเราที่จะต่อต้านกับเรื่องของนมผงที่จะมาขายในประเทศเราเนี่ยให้ได้ยินถึงผู้ที่จะต้องออกกฎหมายที่จะควบคุมเรื่องของนมผงนี้ให้เขาได้ยินเราต้องร้องเพลงด้วยบทเพลงเดียวกันและทำนองเดียวกันค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ